recent years, especially since 2013, China has conducted large-scale land reclamation, island building, and construction of facilities on several features of the Paracels and all the reefs and rocks under its occupation in the Spratlys, causing negative impacts on both the ecological and security environment and threatening peace, stability, and sustainable development of the region. In the Spratlys, through large-scale land reclamation efforts, China has considerably increased the area of the mostly submerged reefs and rocks it occupied. The area of Johnson South Reef has been increased by 12 hectares, Quarteron Reef by 23 hectares, Hughes Reefs by 8 hectares, Gavin Reef by 14 hectares, Fiery Cross Reef by 265 hectares, Subi Reef by 395 hectares, and Mischief Reef by 565 hectares. On these newly constructed artificial islands, China has built many facilities for civil and military purposes, including central command buildings, fuel storage, lighthouses, helicopter pads, and others. In each of the reefs and rocks, China has built terminals with deep channels, capable of accommodating large military ships. In Fiery Cross Reef, Mischief Reef, and Subi Reef, China has completed several 3-kilometer-long airstrips and supporting facilities and communication systems. Since early 2016, China has tested the airstrip on Fiery Cross Reef with multiple takeoffs and landings of civilian planes. On April the 17th, China sent an Y-8 military plane to Fiery Cross Reef for the first time on grounds of transporting workers to Hainan Island for medical treatment. In the reefs of Gavin, Quarteron, Hughes, and Johnson South, China has installed high-frequency radio stations, radar towers, and Navy's short and medium-range artillery pieces. Most notably, the radar system installed on Quarteron Reef is an over-the-horizon radar capable of detecting ships and low-flying aircrafts within a 400-kilometer radius. In the Paracels, China continued renovating and building new facilities on some of the islands. On Duncan Island, China completed a heliport with 12 landing pads, 1 hangar, and numerous other buildings. On Woody Island, China has completed a 3-kilometer-long airstrip, a terminal, and deep channels capable of berthing large vessels. In February 2016, China installed 8 HQ-9 surface-to-air missiles on Woody Island. The HQ-9 is similar to the Russian S-300 and American Patriot systems and has firing range from 6 to 200 kilometers. In late March 2016, China installed the YJ-62 subsonic anti-cruise missile on the island. The YJ-62 has a firing range of 300 kilometers and can be installed on sea-based or land-based mobile launch pads. Satellite images from May the 28th showed China sending the BZK-005 drone to Woody Island for the first time, together with many other military aircraft, including cargo aircraft, fighter aircraft, and attack helicopters. Besides construction of facilities for military purposes and installation of many weapons and means in the Spratlys and Paracels, China has also conducted several large-scale military exercises in the South China Sea. China's naval exercises were extended further south, mobilizing China's latest weapons such as fighter jets, guided missile destroyer, missile corvettes, transport ships, etc. As bold as it was, China planned to send people to live on the islands, organize tours, build resorts, scientific research facilities, natural reservoirs, and maritime economic facilities in the Paracels and Spratlys. The Chinese officials and media have conducted extensive, multifaceted propaganda campaigns in which they justified the land reclamation construction of facilities in the South China Sea as a green and environmentally friendly project. They claimed that the installation of weapons and radar systems in the South China Sea was carried out within Chinese territories. China accused the U.S. of initiating militarization activities in the region by frequently sending surveillance warships and aircraft to the South China Sea in areas within China's sovereignty, and went so far as warning China that it did not rule out establishing the ADIZ in the South China Sea to prevent potential threats. Studies have pointed out that the South China Sea is one of the most biologically diverse areas in the world, with approximately 500 types of coral, compared with 70 types in the Caribbean Sea, and is home to approximately 10% of the world's fish stock. China's activities involving land reclamation and artificial island building aggravated the threats to biodiversity in the South China Sea, caused by rising sea level, sea pollution, and illegal fishing. In building the artificial islands, China has been using a lot of large construction, transport, and dredging vessels. China did not bother to transport construction materials from the mainland, using dredgers to extract the sand and gravel right from the local lagoons and seabeds, crush and pull up the coral reefs to build islands, thus destroying and expelling sea creatures from the local habitats forever. China's intensive mechanized dredging in the construction of artificial islands discharged a large amount of heavy metals, oil, and chemicals, causing extensive damage to the surrounding marine ecosystem, and may also be responsible for changes in the sea currents and waterways around the Spratlys and the Paracels. The U.S.-China Economic and Security Commission's report, China's Island Building in the South China Sea, Damage to the Marine Environment, Implications and International Law, stated that China's island building in the South China Sea buried a large area of coral reefs. Chinese dredgers deposited sand and gravel on top of about 13 square kilometers of coral reefs under Chinese occupation, a process that destroyed the coral underneath. Chinese activities associated with land reclamation on these reefs, such as creating access channels for ships or dredging harbors, also destroyed portions of them. The report also said that China's large-scale land reclamation endangered different types of fish in the South China Sea and threatened the livelihoods of fishermen in the region. In its award dated July 12, 2016, the tribunal constituted under Annex 7 to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea 1982 stated that the tribunal considered the effects of the maritime environment of China's recent large-scale land reclamation and construction of artificial islands at 7 features in the Spratly Islands, and found that China has caused severe harm to the coral reef environment and violated its obligation to preserve and protect fragile ecosystems and the habitat of depleted, threatened, or endangered species. China's actions violated the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity 1992 concerning its obligation to refrain from damaging the environment as a result of its own activities. Article 3 of the Convention provides that states have the responsibility to ensure that activities within their jurisdiction or control do not cause harm to the environment of other states or areas beyond the limits of national jurisdiction. Article 14 of the Convention provides that states shall undertake environmental impact assessments of its proposed projects that are likely to have significant adverse effects on biological diversity. China's land reclamation, construction of artificial islands, and militarization in the South China Sea have escalated tensions that destabilized regional peace and prosperity, prevented efforts towards peaceful resolution of disputes, and posed an imminent threat to the security, safety, and freedom of navigation and aviation in the South China Sea. In its award dated July 12, 2016, the United Nations Arbitration Court stated that China's recent large-scale land reclamation and construction of artificial islands was incompatible with the obligation on a state during dispute resolution proceedings, and destroyed evidence of the natural condition of features in the South China Sea. China's construction of artificial island and militarization in the South China Sea caused an imbalance of power in the region. China can now station a number of aircraft and warships in the Spratlys, using 3 long airstrips and many big ports it has built, and this serves as a springboard for China to speed up sending its forces to the far south of the sea. Once its radar installation and electronic surveillance network are activated, China will be able to significantly strengthen its surveillance, intelligence, and warning capabilities 24 hours a day, promote the deployment of military supplies and ammunition, enhance its control over sea and air navigation in the South China Sea within the self-proclaimed 9-dash line, and expand the strategic space of anti-access area denial. As other claimants increased activities at sea to support the claims of sovereignty rights, while the U.S. built up military presence and carried out sea and air patrol on a more frequent basis, China's militarization activities posed new risks of miscalculation, followed by aggressive encounters or collisions. The risks were evident in one recent case in which China's 2 J-11 aircraft made dangerous intercepting maneuvers in close distance from a U.S. EP-3 surveillance plane, and in another one in which China sent 2 aircraft and 3 Navy vessels to follow the U.S. destroyer William Lawrence near the Fiery Cross Reef. Besides that, China's militarization prompted other claimants to boost defense activities, which led to an arms race in the region. China's unilateral activities in the South China Sea have aroused concerns from countries in the region and around the world. Despite a lack of consensus, ASEAN countries were able to raise the South China Sea issue in different regional fora, in which emphasis were placed on maintaining peace, stability, security, and safety of sea and air navigation in the region, resolving disputes in a peaceful manner and on the basis of international laws, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea 1982, with due respect to diplomatic and legal procedures, in full compliance with the Declaration of Conduct in the South China Sea, or DOC, and with a view to early completion of an effective code of conduct in the South China Sea, or COC. A number of U.S. government officials and Congress members have voiced opposition to China's reclamation, construction, and militarization of artificial islands. The U.S. government carried out its freedom of navigation operations, increased military presence and patrols in international waters in the South China Sea, particularly near the Scarborough Reef, held several joint naval drills with ASEAN countries, and called for more joint activities to deal with threats to freedom of navigation in the region. In its statement, the G7 summit in Japan expressed opposition to unilateral large-scale reclamation, construction of infrastructure, and militarization that could lead to escalation of tension in the South China Sea, and called for peaceful resolutions of disputes on the basis of international laws and ensuring freedom of navigation as well as aviation in the South China Sea. China's activities to change the status quo and militarize its illegally occupied outposts in the South China Sea are not only upsetting other claimants, but also undermining regional peace, freedom of navigation and aviation in one of the most important trade routes of the world, and destroying ecosystems and livelihoods of millions of fishermen in the region. The international community must pressure China to cease its reclamation activities that are changing the status quo in the South China Sea in order to prevent potential consequences for regional security, as well as disastrous economic tolls for regional marine ecosystem, and call on China to respect and comply with the July 12 ruling of the United Nations Arbitration Court.